Now for the pitching side of the All-MiLB team. Last episode, we talked hitters, All-MiLB team on the hitting side, and on the call-up today, it's the pitching side. He's Jack McMullen. I'm Aram Layton. We talked about it on that last episode. If you missed it, go check it out, where we break down all the hitters who were incredibly impressive this year, that the pitching side can be up for a lot more debate. So we did our best here to settle on the names that get the top spot. But of course, we will be sure to mention as many of the honorable mentions as possible. And then we welcome you to let us know who you think we may have missed in the YouTube comments or on Twitter. Jack, you were the catalyst in compiling these top performers. Did you feel like it was harder to boil it down to a couple on the pitching side?
I think there were a couple no-brainers, not spoiling anything, I don't think. Like a Quinn Mathews and a Matt Wilkinson, like they were too good to not be on here. And then, even like the pair of Rockies that we all have on here too, with the prospect pedigree that they have as well, it was impossible to leave them off. But like what really gave me pause was the last guy, was the sixth starting pitcher that we're going to talk about, and then the third relief pitcher. Because there are some guys in the names to watch where I'm like, I feel like you probably could have had a case here. I feel pretty decent about where we settled on all of this. Like there were two no-brainer relievers, and I think there were four no-brainer pitchers and two that were sort of kind of up for interpretation. So that's where I stand on that. You agree or disagree?
Yeah, it's tough because there's players who, this is where it goes more on the statistical side, right? Like it's what you did this year, and we've talked about it, where like there's points in the season where I definitely can't tell you a guy's batting average, but I could tell you his 90th percentile exit velocity, his chase rate, his contact rates. I could probably tell you, what he is doing against secondaries in terms of like, oh, he's productive or not productive. But the surface level stats sometimes will slip me because I'm just trying to see everything there is to see behind or beneath the hood of all of these prospects as we're writing them up and stuff like that. So sometimes I'll almost forget that, like, oh yeah, even though X prospect has the most ridiculous whiff numbers on his fastball, he's not executing as well as he should, and he's still a top prospect for me because of that. But it doesn't mean he's the number one minor league pitcher this year. So like it results in me needing to have a little bit of a shift in terms of, okay, let's ignore the stuff a little bit more this time, and let's actually look at the production and what guys did out there, because that's the point of these All-MiLB teams and these episodes, to really recognize players, whether they're top prospects or not. Of course, that ends up being the tiebreaker, like we talked about. But this is like a zoom out for me, where I can get away from, okay, well, how much vert is he getting from what release height? What's the extension? Just say, how many guys did he get out? How many runs did he give up? How many innings did he throw? That guy was more impressive than that guy.
Right.
And not really worry as much about how they project at the big league level, which is refreshing.
Do you want 97 from a 5.4 release side that gets 19 inches of vert, but he has a 3.94 ERA? Or do you want the guy that threw 110 innings at a 1.9? Like
in this episode, it's the one time we'll take the latter.
I don't know. I mean, but like, we'll see. Again, I'm the toothpick Neanderthal here, and Aram is computer hacker man guy. So there's a nice little like dichotomy there, I would say. But the names to consider in the starting pitching department were as vast as I could possibly make them. I mean, it was just everybody like got jotted down. I see. I'll go through them in order here. Brandon Sproat of the Mets, Jonah Tong of the Mets, Travis Sikora of the Nats, Jaden Ham of the Tigers, Emiliano Teodo of the Rangers, David Davalillo of the Rangers, maybe Davalillo, Bubba Chandler, Thomas Harrington, Carlson Reed of the Pirates, Brad Lord of the Nats, Ian Seymour, Trevor Martin, Yoniel Carey, Brody Hopkins of the Rays, Jackson Jobe of the Tigers, Zebby Matthews of the Twins, Tink Hence of the Cardinals, Thomas White of the Marlins, Mason Adam of the White Sox, Doug Nikhazy of the Guardians, George Klassen of the Angels, and Michael Morales of the Mariners. I feel like there are two tiers of names to watch here.
Yeah.
If I were to separate and put you in a top tier of names to watch, like the guys that we tabbed 6 starting pitchers, if I were to go 7 through 10, it would be Travis Sikora, it'd be Bubba Chandler, it'd be Zebby Matthews, and then probably Sproat or Tong. I can't decide out of those two.
Sproat would have been a slam dunk had he not run into some trouble in AAA. And
And like, it wasn't just trouble; it was like he ran into a brick wall in terms of production.
which I don't think changed the just the way we look at him as a pitching prospect and everything like that. But it definitely impacted the numbers overall. And the recency side of it, of course, is going to make it feel a bit more relevant. So that part was difficult. Sakura was a player where like it was tough because we talk about the level thing, right? And I think statistically speaking, Sakura was probably deserving of being on there. It's one of those things where, okay, yeah, he's deserving, but who are you booting off?
Right.
Regardless, like I think Sakura could have a case to be on there ahead of maybe anybody that you put on this list outside of like Quinn Mathews and Wilkinson. The problem is, it's not even a problem because it was his first full pro season pitching. He did it all at low A. And I don't want to take anything away from him, but when other guys are climbing multiple levels and doing it and the numbers are comparable, it's probably going to earn them the slight edge. But it is really hard for me to just sit here and not have Sakura on there, who, if you add in the 2 postseason appearances too, he was outrageous this year. And it was really cool to see him finish with the 2 postseason outings as well. And those aren't going to be included into these numbers that we talk about. But in the final 2 outings in the playoffs for Fredericksburg, consecutive outings of 5 innings, 1 hit, no runs. He had 1 walk in one of them, but no walks in the other, and 9 Ks in both of them. So combined for 10 innings, no runs, 2 hits, 1 walk, and 18 Ks to close out the season with the sticks being higher than they had been all year. But yeah, I would have liked to have seen him do that in high A a little bit too. And I think he would have. It's hard to fault him for it, but right, it was just interesting that the Nationals kept him in Fredericksburg the entirety of the season.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And like, the thing is, he's the same age as the guy that is clearly the 6th starting pitcher on this list. And that 6th starting pitcher did it all in AA. And it's not like high A to double, it's low A to double. And I agree with you that Sakura, like, I thought long and hard about that one. It was like, okay, Sakura versus this guy, Sakura versus this guy. And I just sided with the one that firmly made himself a top 3 starting pitching prospect in the game, or a top 4 starting pitching prospect in the game.
No doubt. I think if you included the postseason stats, then maybe he could have like snuck his way back up there. But it's a big difference, even with the Southern League being very pitcher friendly. When you're a young arm, and these are both young, tall guys, right? Schultz is 6'9", Sakura 6'6", and you get up to AA. It's a different beast. These hitters are better. They're more polished, and you can't just overwhelm them as much as you could at low A. So yeah, doing it 2 levels higher, and the innings side of it too. Like, it's not like Sakura threw 140, and it's pretty crazy that we ended up seeing Schultz throw 88 in the 3rd this year in the regular season. Then he ends up throwing another outing. The fact that he pushed way past that innings threshold that they had talked about before the year is I think really encouraging. But yeah, he ended up throwing in the regular season 3 more innings than Sakura as well. So yeah, I mean, it's hard when he has a better ERA, doing it at a level and then another level higher than him, than Sakura, that is. It seems like a slam dunk for Schultz at 6.
We should probably just start talking about Noah Schultz. I had us starting with Quinn Mathews, but like now that's the perfect transition.
Yeah, that's my bad.
No, all good. Like, I think it is the perfect transition into Noah Schultz, because you spurn a guy like Sakura or a Bubba Chandler for a Noah Schultz. The reason that I think we were okay with having him as the number 6 guy and the last, the 6th starter on the All-MiLB team is, kind of like what I was saying. He solidified himself as the best left-handed pitching prospect in baseball this year. And I think that was really the tiebreaker. 6'9" lefty, somehow repeatable mechanics. And at 20 years old, he just turned 21. This guy logged a full season, and he was one of the best pitchers at the AA level. Like, there's just no denying how this year made him, from an elite project to an elite prospect.
Yeah. No, and the side of, I think, the devil's advocate, I don't think anybody's out here trying to take anything away from Noah Schultz's season. But if there's a Travis Sakura supporter or somebody that is very amped on Jaden Ham, who also, by the way, had a phenomenal year and was so much fun to watch what he was doing in the Tiger system. But they could say, oh, well, it was pretty much 4 innings every time out for Schultz. Yes, but he also made every start this year and then made more than anybody would have expected. And it was automatic for him where it wasn't 4 innings that they were limiting him to. It was 60 pitches, but he was able to go 4 innings pretty much every single time because he was so efficient in the way that he was able to fill up the zone with 3 pitches. And I mean, it's just so much fun to watch this guy do his thing. We always talk about it, like a 6'9" pitcher should not be this in control of his long levers and mechanics and everything like that. And I mean, this year, I think from every perspective, statistically, and from an innings perspective, and from a consistency perspective, and from the fact that he was still sitting 95 at the end of the year, like this had to have been the ideal outcome going into the year. If you asked like White Sox brass what they would want to see from Noah Schultz in the best case scenario, I don't think anybody's reasonably saying anything better than what happened this year.
Good performance in the futures game.
Oh, yeah, that's the only one. That's the only thing.
Laid an egg in the futures game, which was tough. But
that's because you were there.
Yeah, that's because I was there. That's because I was like remotely excited versus in Seattle. It was like, oh, Jonathan.
It was the first time I'd seen you care about anything loosely White Sox related. And it wasn't because he's a White Sox guy, but I'm sure there was a little extra in you. It's like, oh, well, my childhood team might have a special pitcher here. Let's see what they've got.
No doubt. Versus in Seattle, I like proactively made my bathroom break the Jonathan Cannon inning. And like, I'm sorry, Jonathan Cannon, because he actually flashed somewhat well in the big leagues. And I think he should be in that rotation at the beginning of next year too. So I apologize to Jonathan Cannon, but I was very disappointed in Noah Schultz in Arlington for the futures game. But yeah, I'm with you. Like, he couldn't have done anything better with AA Birmingham, given the guardrails that were placed around him. Like, it felt like he was still bowling with bumpers, but he didn't really need them at all this year. And
I'd say like if you bowl like a 260 or something with bumpers, isn't that still pretty impressive?
Yeah, but like chances are you're not even using the bumpers.
That's the thing. Like it basically never using the bumpers is a great analogy to that. And then I realized too, like we'll go through the next 5 and then to wrap up, can I punch on a couple of the honorable mentions that I just am excited to talk a little bit about, maybe that we haven't given too much airtime to this year?
Totally.
Yeah. But of course, we can't delay anymore before we get to number 5.
That's fine. Quinn Mathews. We're going to go. Do you want to go top down or you want to go down up?
Down up. Oh, we cannot skip this next guy. Come on.
Okay. Sorry. Not Quinn Mathews. We're saving Quinn Mathews for last. Caden Dana is the next one. Aram is fired up to talk about Caden Dana, who kind of sort of kicked ass this year in AA. I know that it was a quality start in his debut and then 2 really rough starts after that with the Angels, but this guy started 23 games with AA Rocket City. 20-year-old in AA, 135 innings at a 2.52, a whip under 1, a batting average against at a $184, and he was pounding the zone all year long. Caden Dana was really good this year. He was really productive. There are some underlying things that had him as the 103rd best prospect in baseball, not 100. And Aram heard a lot about that. But at the end of the day, this guy was flat out awesome in the minor leagues this year.
He was so amazing. A rare 20-year-old innings eater too, right? Like, and just in true Angels fashion, letting him go. And the fact that he's just was available and ready and dialed in every 5th day. I mean, this guy pitched like he felt like he had an opportunity to make his big league debut, and he earned that. I thought it was a little rushed, and I even would have liked to have seen him throw maybe in AAA a little bit just to get out of that environment. I know that the Angels hate doing that, and you don't love putting guys in the PCL, but I just think with the way the Southern League was this year, it might have been good to just have him throw somewhere else for a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's a moot point because he's going to be, I think, have a chance to get up there early next year with what he did this season on multiple fronts. One, just being that he was able to compile so many innings. And 2, the fact that he's just so consistent. I love that you mentioned that, like, filling up the zone. The reason why he wasn't a top 100 guy for us is I think that the ceiling is limited and there's some challenges to command, I think pitches outside of the fastball and slider, but he did find that cutter now that he's starting to throw that is a bridge that can help. And beyond that, he throws strikes with the fastball and it's still 94 and he still executes well. So I feel really confident that at the very least, this guy's going to be, a back end of the rotation innings eater that gives you flashes and more, but he might find something this offseason. I think the most important thing here though, is you see a 6'4" sturdy right-hander that handled a workload you just don't really see anymore with top end prospects. And this was a guy that they shelled out a lot over slot to sign when they drafted him. And he handled it comfortably and really didn't slow down. You could call the big league debut slowing down, but that was just, I think, adjusting to the big leagues. Like he held his velocity for a lot of the year. Most of his outings were 90, 100 pitches. And I mean, he was efficient and missed enough bats. So I don't know if it's all going to translate to being a number 3 starter at the highest level, but I'm very confident this guy's going to be a big league starter for a long time. And I think it was a really impressive year overall. And they just need guys like this, in Anaheim. So I thought it was a very, very impressive year from Dana.
I like that him and Klassen coexist in the same organization because they are polar opposites in terms of what they are as pitchers. Klassen was a college, like freakazoid fastball, but it seems like he may not be in 150 innings guy a year. But that is exactly who Caden Dana is. And Dana is 3-4 years younger than Klassen? I think 3 years younger.
At least 3, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's 20 years old, man. And he was eating innings. Like, speaking to your point, 7 of his 23 starts were 7 innings or longer. 3 of them were 8 innings or longer. He went 8 twice and he went 9 once. The fact that this guy was eating innings like that as a 20-year-old, you mentioned sturdy 6'4", he's exactly what you want your back end starting pitcher to look like. Like it's hey, you look like you can throw 200 innings in a given season.
No doubt. And I mean, in terms of AA arms, like the only guys that were throwing more innings than him were like the kind of, I wouldn't label them like org guys, but usually guys that I don't think teams are as worried about protecting, right? And the Yankees are pretty notorious for this. Well, they'll build up like those guys that, were late picks that have stuff that they've kind of improved and look like they could be innings eaters. And they're like, get them leaning into the innings eater thing right away. Like Zach Messenger, who threw 150 innings this year for them. If you look at the AA level this year, 3 of the top 10 in innings pitched were Yankees prospects. Wow. But the point that I'm actually trying to get to here is of the top 10 innings pitched guys in AA, which was 135 and 2/3 innings and above, none of them were younger than 23 years old. And almost all of them were 24, 25, 26. So the only other guy is Caden Dana at 20 years old. You usually don't see a 20-year-old push that far. And I don't know if he should have been, whatever, we'll see. But the fact that he was able to handle it that way, and then that's not including the innings he threw at the big league level, it is quite impressive.
No doubt. Next guy that we've got on the All-MiLB team is Sean Sullivan, one of 2 Colorado Rockies that we're going to talk about. And he 8 innings, not to the level that Dana did. Dana was about 140 innings when you factor in his major league time. But Sean Sullivan, 21 starts between high A and AA, 115 innings. He was at a 2.11 ERA, a whip just over 0.9. Opponents hit 212 against him. The thing that is craziest about Sean Sullivan, in 115 innings, 125 punch-outs, 15 walks.
15 walks.
Fastball, and a couple more fastballs. I think it was 65% usage?
Yep.
But dude, 88 plays.
It's going to play from that release and from whatever he's able to create that just seems to have hitters so uncomfortable. And what's amazing is this was one of our like breakout guys going into the year. And I picked him as a breakout guy because when we saw him in a brief stint last year, when it was in Visalia, he threw 2 innings and he struck out everybody he saw. Yeah. He averaged 93 with the fastball there. So, and I know that was just 2 innings, but he averaged 93 there. So I'm looking at that. I'm like 93 from that angle with that extension and just that funkiness, that's going to play. If you told me before the season that he'd be sitting 87, I wouldn't have picked him as a breakout pitching prospect. Right. I'm just being honest. So this is not for the victory lap. This is actually for I don't know how this still ended up being right. Because it really, and I know he's been stretched out more, but even when he was at Wake Forest, when we saw him throwing 94 pitches, he was averaging 90, 91. So I'm not totally sure what resulted in the downtick. I don't know if it was maybe a result of some of the adjustments that he has made to get more extension. Like this guy's extension would rank, I think, at the very top of Major League Baseball. He gets 7.4 feet of extension on his fastball. I think, what does Zach Wheeler get? Like 7.2?
I think so. And Glass now gets like 7.5, 7.6, I want to say.
And so I think he'd be up there with like in the top 1%. Then he's also getting 16 inches of vert from a 5.4 foot release height. So you're getting, 99th percentile extension, and then you're getting a lot of vert from a very low release point. That's going to play up. So that's how 87 works. But if he has an off-season program here, like this guy's 6'4", 190. Maybe he's put on a little bit more weight since the last time they've updated that. But regardless, he's got room to add some strength. If he has a little bit of a, I'm not saying he needs to have a Quinn Mathews type of leap in an offseason, but if he does a quarter of a Quinn Mathews and he's sitting now 89, 90, I think it's game. Like this guy's a top 100 prospect without a doubt. And I think would be a monster because this is not just playing at low A. This was playing at double A against some pretty good lineups. So I think at the big league level, it'll be hard to make that 87, 88 work because hitters will adjust to the deception and then just start anticipating the spot. But I mean, if he can get another tick or two, this guy can be an absolute monster because the year that he had is just outrageous, being where he's operating at velocity wise and pitch usage wise. And the changeup is great and the curveball has come along. So, I mean, this guy could be really, really darn good, man. But to see the numbers the way that they were, and I love that you mentioned the walks, like to have that funk and not walk guys too, he's got a good chance to be a guy for the Rockies.
Dude, I went down the video hole again as we were doing this, and it looks like he's going to fall over during his delivery. He's that crossfire. Yeah, I mean, it feels like he is going to like stumble off the mound every single pitch, and yet somehow it works, and somehow he can pound the zone when he is that crossbody. I don't really understand it. I don't think any pitching coach in America would be teaching what he does, but that's what makes these guys big leaguers, is they do something that very, very few people can do on the face.
This is outlier. This is like people throw around outlier too much. This is outlier because it's coming. I'm glad you mentioned the horizontal angle. It's coming from first base and he's getting extension. We talk about like the how rare to have that cross body delivery and plus extension. I forget who the other pitcher was that we were talking about that with. I know it wasn't Sullivan, but there was another guy that gets that cross body fire with great extension. We're like, how does he do both? Like, how does he not turn into a pretzel? And it's the same story with Sullivan. Most guys can't do both. So if you're getting plus extension from this crazy horizontal release, it's something that hitters have never seen. It's almost like that cage work that guys will get. I guess that's the only time they'll see it, is the cage work where, you have the machine or somebody flipping to them off from the side. It's almost like that, but at 88 and with a good changeup off of it and a curveball that made a lot of progress.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I feel like it's even hard to replicate in the cage too, because I feel like a hitter's eyes are supposed to be like on the pitcher's torso, yet you have to look. It's the Sale thing. Lefties could not see Sale. They cannot see Sale because they essentially need to like crane their neck to see it. And I feel like Sean Sullivan could be doing that exactly.
Last thing on that front, people just throw around like long, lanky, funky lefty and comp to Sale way too much. It's like become kind of like an automatic thing.
Yeah.
Is Sean Sullivan the closest to the Sale delivery that you have seen maybe in the last couple of years?
Tiedemann is up there. I think Tiedemann is probably the guy just because of the height from Tiedemann. Like Tiedemann is a bigger guy than Sean Sullivan is, but in terms of where the ball, like I bet if you pulled up a scatter plot, Tiedemann is a little bit farther inside than Sullivan is.
For sure he is.
And I would think that Sullivan is probably the closest one to Sale. The thing that makes Sale is the thing that made, I think, Randy Johnson. Like Randy was throwing 99. But it was coming from out here because Randy Johnson was 6'10". Like, don't forget about that. Not all these guys are built stock. Sale is 6'6", and his arms never end. He's like Kevin Durant. He is our Kevin Durant when it comes to just frame in Major League Baseball. This is not supposed to be durable. Hell, it wasn't for the last 4 years, but it is durable this year, and it's just so weird. Nobody can defend it. Nobody can defend a Kevin Durant jumper. No left-handed hitter can see the ball clean out of Chris Sale's hand. So from that point, I probably do think that Sullivan is the closest when it comes to scatter plot, like release point to Sale. But in terms of delivery and like big body slinging it like that, I see more Sale and Tiedemann than I do from
Yeah.
Sean Sullivan.
Yeah. Well, which is tough because hopefully we'll see Tiedemann feeling loose and able to cut it loose and throw the way that we've seen him throw in the past when he gets back. It'll probably be start of 26.
I would think so.
Jeez. Yeah, it's brutal.
It sucks.
I do want to see a scatter plot now. You got me going on that just to see where he lines up. I don't think there's going to be many dots near Sean Sullivan's release point there. But that brings us to another Rockies guy.
Chase Dollander is our other Rockies guy. And it's kind of crazy to think that 33% of the first team All-MiLB pitching group at Just Baseball is a lot of Rockies pitchers. But Dollander, awesome. 23 starts, 118 innings at a 2.59 ERA. Opponents hit 215 against him. He was K'ing 13 per 9. The way that I put it in the article here, that's I'm sure we'll link in the episode description, it feels like the Twilight Zone ride at Disney World, where you know how you go like up, then down, then up, then down. 2022, sophomore year at Tennessee, it's like, this guy's the best pitcher in America. He would be pitcher 1 if he was draft eligible this year. And then 23 rolls around and he's got first inning issues. Guys are, hitting him a little bit better in the SEC than anybody was really anticipating. So pitcher 1, and credit to the emergence of Skeens and the improvement of Louder, like that pushed him to pitcher 3. And now in 2024, we saw exactly why he was considered pitcher 1 going into the 2023 season. This guy is so good with multiple pitches. He will have at least 3, it feels like, in any given start. And the delivery just felt more natural this year. We talked about that early, and he kept that athleticism throughout the entirety of the year, and it worked at high A and in double A.
Yeah, and another guy that just creates a really weird angle on his fastball. It doesn't look it as much. Like, it looks like a more generic release when you're watching, but it's very evidently like a difficult angle for hitters, where it's kind of short arm. It's a very flat VAA where it almost looks like it's sitting in the palm of his hand with the way that he's able to rip it. And from there, it just takes off out of his hand. It also helps that, he throws gas, and he sat 96.3 miles per hour on his fastball this year. But creating that flat attack angle and this short arm delivery, it really exacerbates the ride. And I mean, opponents had a 60% in zone contact rate against his fastball this year. When he's thrown it 63% of the time, and so hitters are know that there's 2/3 of the pitches they're going to see are going to be the fastball, and they still can't get on top of it, let alone just even get to it. That shows you how good the fastball is. The crazy part is, you mentioned, he's got 3 legit secondaries, and they are legit. He just didn't need them that much this year. As the season progressed, there was an emphasis on throwing those secondaries more, and that's where, I think he battled some walks here and there. Great, work through that. You're 22. It was your first like real full season here. Build on it. The slider's not a problem. He landed that first strike all year long. That's great. I know he was very excited about what he had found with the curveball and the changeup, and you could see the pitches having some quality there. It's just the consistency, and they weren't bad in terms of it. Like, it wasn't like a 40% strike rate. It was 54 for the curveball, and the changeup was hovering around 60 for most of the year. So he's got a chance there to have a 4-pitch arsenal, and it's going to be a fastball that's a 70. It's going to be a slider that's plus. And then even if the curveball and changeup are average, mixing those in with an elite fastball slider combination, with the command continuing to progress the way that it has, this guy's going to be a monster, no matter what environment he's in. So what I like is, as currently constructed, he could succeed at the big league level, but it would be very fastball dependent. But then you can also dream on a guy that has, more towards the front line upside, if he can find that feel for, pitches 3 and 4.
Yeah, I know there are some outlets already that have him as a top 10 prospect in baseball, and top 2, top 3 pitching prospect in the game, only behind Jackson Jobe, really. Painter is really good. Like we've talked about that a lot. It feels like people forget just how freaking good Andrew Painter is. I'll throw you this one and just mull it over. You don't need to give me a firm answer right away, but Chase Dollander or Noah Schultz?
Oh,
right?
That
Like,
is
you
a good
don't
one.
have to give me an answer today. We'll find out at the end of season update, but just think about it for a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah. I want the listeners to think about that too, because that's a fun one too, because it's two totally different types of pitchers,
Yeah.
but kind of achieve similar things. That's a fun conversation. That'll be a fun top 100 conversation when you and I are going through the pitching side, but it's close. And I do have a natural bias towards the high whiff fastball guys, the guys that just can dominate within the zone, because you're seeing in real time in Major League Baseball now, time and time again, how guys with the unique fastball that dominates in the zone, how much it can just allow them to succeed even with the complementary pitches not totally being there.
Bryce Miller and Brian Wu are like the perfect example of this. And I know they were last year's example in terms of rookies that are really breaking out because of the unique fastball characteristics. But Miller just logged 50 innings at a sub 3, and Brian Wu was rocking a low 2s before a couple of blips, at the end. Like, these guys are proving immense success as quote unquote back end starters, where they would be frontline starters for a lot of other teams.
Exactly. But then you look at Noah Schultz and you say, okay, where do you find a guy like this? You don't. You don't really find guys that can, you can dream on some crazy stuff with what, Noah Schultz could potentially be. So that's a fun one. But yeah, I'm with you. Like, we're seeing that fastball dependency is becoming more and more tolerable when you can, have some special aspects to that fastball, which Dollander clearly has.
2 no-brainers in a moment. Before that, quick break. First of our 2 no-brainers with the Cleveland Guardians, Tugboat. Matt Wilkinson, 24 starts between low A and high A, 118 and 2/3 innings, a 1.90 ERA, a 0.91 whip. Opponents hit under $170 against him. He was K'ing 13.5 per 9, walking fewer than 3 per 9. It may not make sense. I don't think it makes much sense. But at the end of the day, dude, like, what he did is what he did. And it was I think, the second best pitching season that we had in minor league baseball this year.
Another guy that did it in the postseason too, which I love. Like, Lake County vibes were awesome with Bazana out there too, just wanting
Ralphie.
to win. Ralphie, like, it was awesome. He went at Dayton, and put together a good outing there. And it ain't easy pitching in Dayton. Like, that's the best. I can't believe I'm saying that about a minor league environment, but that is the most intense minor league environment you're going to pitch in. This was a JUCO guy, right? Like,
yeah,
this guy went to Central Arizona. I think Dayton was probably the most electrifying atmosphere he's probably pitched in, if I'm not mistaken. But goes there, throws really well, 5 innings of 1 earned run ball, and then gets the ball again 7 days later and goes 6 2/3 of 2 earned runs. He's just a walking quality start. Do you know what his worst start was of the season in terms of earned runs? How many earned runs do you think his worst start of the season was?
It had to be low. It had to be like 4 or 5.
His worst in terms of earned runs was 3.
No way.
He had 3 outings of 3 earned runs. That was the worst figure he had in an individual game this year.
Like, come on, man. Nobody's supposed to be that consistently good.
You're a game score guy.
What was his worst start? Yeah, I love game score. What was his worst start?
That was what I was about to get into. I said, I know you're a game score guy, so by game score, his worst start. Look at that. I was answering your question before you asked it. We've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
4 innings, 4 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, 3 Ks.
That's just not a bad start.
That's not a bad start. Who did you talk about? Like, you said something that was funny. It was like, this guy like never like left the ballpark pissed. Oh, it was Chandler Simpson.
Also, really big moment where you said I said something that was funny. That's huge.
And now you ruined it. Like, I regret it.
I'm always going to acknowledge it. When you offer up something somewhat nice to me, I'm going to take it and run.
Yes, make them think I treat you terribly off the air. Make our audience think that. But
yeah, no doubt.
So that's the same boat, right? Like, Tugboat. He's never leaving the ballpark upset. You think he was pissed after that? 4 innings, 3 earned?
Probably. Just a standard thing. Like, probably. He's just
but he was in Central Arizona a year ago.
I know. Probably not then. You're right.
That's so I mean, like, first team all never left the ballpark pissed this year. Yeah. It's got to be Chandler Simpson, and then it's got to be Tugboat.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anybody else I could think of. Like maybe he was a little bit pissed that outing. And I think the game score got docked because he gave up 2 home runs. One was to Norwillian Cedeno, and then the other was to Devin Ortiz.
Okay.
But and they were both kind of cheap shots. They were both 98 off the bat, 98, 97 off the bat.
Interesting.
So, I mean, what a year from this guy. One of the last things I want to mention with him is that a lot of fastball usage, which is wild because it's 89.5.
Yeah.
72% strike rate on it.
Dude.
But the thing is like the consistency of the secondaries wasn't always there. He only landed them for a strike at a 50% clip, the slider and the changeup. But when it was around the zone, it was outrageously gross, at least for hitters that could not hit it. In zone whiff rate of 31%. So non-fast 31%. So non-fastballs, opponents still only had a 69% zone contact rate and hit 148 against those pitches. So he's got something going on. Another guy that you just have to ask the hitters in the box, I think, what the deception is and why it looks so weird. But clearly it looks weird. So I don't know how it plays at the highest level, but I mean, he's going to get a shot, and that's pretty crazy because I don't think anybody was looking at him at Central Arizona with his build and his velocity and saying, "Oh, that guy's going to be a big leaguer." And he will be. It's gonna depend on how he succeeds and how that all plays up there. But this guy's gonna get to the big leagues and get a shot,
which is crazy. And Cleveland has a bunch of those guys. I have no idea what it's going to look like when they get to the big leagues, but they have a bunch of guys that are going to get to the big leagues. And I'm thinking about Matt Wilkinson, and I'm thinking about Parker Messick, and I'm thinking about Austin Peterson, who was awesome this year.
Even Aaron Davenport. I that guy's going to get to the show. I just don't know what it'll look like.
Right. Doug Nikhazy, too. He's going to get there, and he was awesome in the postseason. Nikhazy started, I think, game 1 of the playoffs in the International League. It's just crazy how many of these guys they have that are going to get to the big leagues, make a start, and we'll see what they turn into.
Yeah, which is a great thing to have. You can never have too many of those guys that could just come up and fill in and grab innings. And
because the moment you had doubts about Joey Cantillo this year, he got up to the big leagues and really turned it on.
Which is crazy. By the way, Aaron Davenport, 145 innings this year at AA, 2.85 ERA.
Dude.
And afterthought.
Yeah.
Not even discussed.
That's crazy, man. One guy, I don't think you need to ask the hitters what you see from Quinn Mathews. I think everything is right there in front of you. And Quinn Mathews was, I think, inarguably the best pitcher in minor league baseball this year. He put together the second 200 strikeout season since 2011. Do you know who the other one was?
Second since 2011. Can you tell me the year?
2022. Recent.
Oh, 2022 200 strikeout season?
Mm-hmm. Think about that. Since the start of the 2020 or the 2012 season, there have been 2 pitchers in the minor leagues with a 200 strikeout season. Quinn Mathews and...
It's going to make me angry, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Quinn Mathews and...
Upper levels, PCL.
Oh, Brandon Pfaadt?
Pfaadt.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. It's elite company.
Yeah. That Pfaadt year was nuts. I mean, what's crazy is Quinn Mathews, I think, would have had a lot of firsts in terms of we could have probably done some stat queries and I could have said I was the first guy to have this ERA and this many innings or whatever. He did finally look human in AAA.
Yep.
It's so tough because I think it was a combination of him probably just getting tired too at the end of the year, paired with the fact that he's facing the most polished hitters he's ever seen in the tightest zone he's ever dealt with. It had to have been tough. If you take out those AAA starts at the end of the year, I mean, his number 2.41 ERA, a 2.37 FIP. He struck out 187 and 130 and 2/3 innings. It felt like he was in low A forever.
Yeah,
he wasn't even there that long. You and I were complaining about it. Why is he still there? Why is he still there? He should have been up after 2 starts.
It was video game every single time.
Oh no, I agree. But I also, every time I look back, I'm like, why did I think he was there for 15 starts? It felt like it because of the way he was bullying. He was there for 6 starts. But to your point, it was legit video game numbers because after the first start where he just shook off a little bit of rust, he just dominated every single time out there. And in the subsequent 5 starts, his final 5 starts at low A, 46 punchies and 27 and a third. He only allowed 4 earned runs and walked 6. So 1.32 ERA. So that's a 46% strikeout rate and a 6% walk rate.
Yeah.
Like he made a few too many starts there, no doubt. Then he goes to high A and just doesn't really blink. And then I think he was better in double A than he was in high A. He had 1 blow up in double. And like his blow up, he still went 5 2/3 at Amarillo. But like it was a blow up for his standards. He gave up 6 earned, still struck out 6. Yeah. And then from that point onward in double A was downright unhittable. So it was amazing to see him pretty much either if he had 1 bad outing, he seemed to always turn the page. And then in that Texas league, his final 5 outings there before getting to AAA, 31 2/3 innings, 49 Ks, 5 walks, a 0.85 ERA. It's a 42.6% strikeout rate and a 4% walk rate. So yeah, hit a little bit of a snag in AAA. I think a lot of that was probably fatigue driven, just it being the very, very end of the year.
Playing spoiler for next week, there's really no other argument for him to, or there's really no argument for him to not be the minor league pitcher of the year,
no,
right?
You can't.
Like
you can't.
It feels like a slam dunk that he was the minor league pitcher of the year.
Yeah, there's just no other direction. The thing that stands out, I think, maybe the most to me, aside from the swing and miss, is opponents like 274 against this guy. And when you think about it from that lens, he threw his fastball 50% of the time. Yeah. And it's a hoppy fastball that he likes to throw high.
Yeah.
And he's not giving up slug. ISO below 100, like 8 homers he allowed on the season. And I thought the fastball command could have still been better. Like if you look at the data points, like he could have executed a little bit better. Like there's more in there potentially too. Damn. We talked about it a few weeks ago. Is like, I think he's one of the best left-handed pitching prospects in baseball. If you could say he's number 2 right behind. I think you could say he's got the edge on Hagen Smith. I think there's a conversation there. Like
I would think so.
You could say he's 2 right behind Schultz. Like it's not just the production here. This guy also projects, I think, to succeed at the big league level with 4 legit pitches and good overall command.
Yeah. You said you had a couple more guys in the names to consider that you wanted to kind of dive a little bit deeper into because we haven't talked about it much.
Yeah, I just wanted to give Jaden Ham a little bit of extra love because, you know, I think he's a guy that just has slipped by for us a bit on the show where we could probably have given him a little bit more airtime, and I'll take the blame on that one. When we did the Tiger system, I should have ranked him higher. What he did with his fastball, and it's low 90s, right? In the Tiger system, like it's low 90s, but he just comfortably dominated with it. And I think it's mostly 92, 93. He'll grab a 4, maybe occasional 5, but gets crazy ride on that fastball. Gets about 21 inches of vert. It's a high release point at like 6.5, but it's not just your typical, like very obvious over the top where I think it's easy to pick up. Like he looks like if you freeze frame it, and I just did, I'm going to send you the screenshot. You're going to laugh. If you freeze frame right as he like is rearing all the way back, it looks like he's about to throw the pitch straight up into the sky. Like his elbow is pointed up towards the press box and his arm is like dipped straight backwards. It looks like he's legitimately going to launch the ball to the sun, like Trevor Bauer style when they were going to come take him out, like threw it straight to center field. It looks like that.
Which, like, by the way, in hindsight, is one of the dumbest things I've seen on a baseball field. Like, it took me a year or so to realize, like, how freaking stupid that was.
I never fully processed that until it came back up. You know, like we just have clips recycle all the time on social.
Right.
And I saw that and I was like, that is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen.
What a loser. Like, that was my takeaway. Like, in the heat of the moment, I was like, whoa, that's crazy, like hyper competitive. And then I put it away. And then I saw it, like, honestly, a month or 2 ago. And I was like, what a loser thing to do.
That is still one of the weirdest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But that's what Ham looks like he's going to do every time he delivers the ball home. So it's this like crazy deception and then gets this crazy backspin and it rides. And like, I mean, hitters just were not comfortable against this guy. Just turned 22 years old a few weeks ago. It was cool to see him do his thing in high A. Thomas White, I think, is right there in that conversation of like the tier 1 left-handed pitching prospects as well. We've talked a ton about Harrington. We've talked about Teodo, who I also think like just finding what works for him has been really cool. I talked about Michael Morales on the Prospect Report of the Just Baseball show. And Morales, it's funny because, you know, remember when everybody was saying like, where's Logan Evans? Where's Logan Evans? You need to rank him higher. You need to rank him higher in that Mariners system. I think Mariners fans are now saying Morales is our guy. And it's not an indictment on Logan Evans, but I also think it's a testament to, Morales, but also shows like somebody can kind of pop up here and be the guy. Obviously that's ignoring Durangelo Sanja, who's clearly their guy now, and
Right.
Ryan Sloan. But beyond that, like guys that they already had in there, it seems like Morales, with the way that he finished the year, could easily be in that conversation for their like best now homegrown guy that they had already going into the season. Evans had a great year, but Morales just turned 22 and was phenomenal in the Texas League. I mean, another guy that's really operating in the low 90s. It's more 92, 93, but the command was there for the whole season pretty much, like just filling up the zone. And he's got a good feel for an entire arsenal. His final 8 starts of the year, he had a 2.44 ERA. And if you even go shorter than that, his final 5 starts, he had a 1.93 in that Texas League. But what I like about him is it's fastball, cutter, slider, changeup, curveball. They all have performed pretty well, and he'll just kind of come at you with the kitchen sink there and execute and sequence well. I think this guy's a high probability back end of the rotation arm, and it was just a really strong finish to the year that really, I think, put him on radars even more. And I just really love the fastball cutter combination. This guy's just going to get outs, especially if you put him in Seattle there. He's definitely going to get outs. He likes to get fly balls. Like I have a high confidence in him being able to be a solid big league arm.
You just made Mariners fans feel really good. I'm going to make them feel really bad now. The other guy that I wanted to highlight just for a minute was Brody Hopkins, who, again, like, can we remind you, it's his first year pitching full time. This guy had a 906 OPS last year at Winthrop before the Mariners took him. His first year as a full-time pitcher, he goes 115 innings at a 305. 22 years old between low A and high A. He upped from 54 innings last year at Winthrop. Before that, college Charleston, he threw 3 innings in 2022. Rest of that was just collegiate summer ball that he was pitching. Last year at Winthrop, 54 innings at a 5.8 ERA, and he goes to pro ball, 115 innings at a 3.05. It's hard for me to wrap my head around him doing that. But, like, shit, Skeens kind of did it, although Skeens was better at Air Force. Like, we just have so many of these freak athletes that can hop on the mound and be awesome right away.
Yeah, I mean, Noel McLean had a really awesome finish to the year, too, in the Mets system, and they even let him hit for a good portion of this year. The thing that's most remarkable about Hopkins is the command, that's going to be the big question, and we'll always talk about that. But to have such a funky release, of course, the command's going to be a bit of a question. That release being so funky and having another kitchen sink type of guy where he's sitting 96 with the 4-seamer, then he's 95 with the 2-seamer, then he has a slider at 87, he has a curveball in the mid 80s, he has a cutter at 90, and then he has a changeup in the upper 80s as well. Like, he's got 6 different pitches that he can come at you with from a 4.8 release height. This guy's bizarre in the best way possible. Like, even if he doesn't throw enough strikes to be a starter, he could be a disgusting multi-inning reliever. But I think this guy should get every opportunity to stick as a starter because this arsenal is and this, the pitch characteristics is just different.
Yeah. We're going to get to the relievers here to wrap, but before that, we'll take one more quick. We highlighted 3 relievers, a Dodger, a Brewer. Before that, the relief names to watch, much shorter list. Keyshawn Askew of the Tampa Bay Rays was certainly 4th, and I sent you guys the least sexy question that I've ever asked in my baseball media career. Keyshawn Askew or the reliever that we're going to talk about in a moment. Zach Agnos of the Rockies, Luis Peralta of the Pirates and Rockies, now with the Rockies. That was a deadline heist, dude. Colorado grabbed Peralta for Jalen Beeks, and Peralta already looks good in the big leagues. Nico Zeglin of the Cubs, Troy Taylor of the Mariners, Matt Cronin of the Nats, our guy Walter Pennington, friend of the program of the Royals and the Rangers. Now it's
in the show still, baby.
Yeah, I know. And then Evan Sisk of the Kansas City Royals, who was part of that Michael A. Taylor deal a couple of years ago. Sisk, 27 years old. Askew, 24 years old. The reason Askew was off is because we saw a 22-year-old go from low A to the show. But before we get to him, you have anything on any of these guys in the other names considered?
I've always been interested in Askew. I'm trying to remember who he was traded for. He was a Mets prospect that was traded over to the Rays, and that's the first time I really got keyed in on him. So I'm trying to remember who he would have been. It was like a 2022 or 2023 trade. So would have had to be a smaller kind of nothing deal. But the first time I went to just see, like, okay, Rays acquired this guy. I'm interested to see arm, lower level guy. What's it going to look like? And then I watched the video. I'm like, okay, this is funky as can be. And clearly it has resulted in some very uncomfortable at bats for hitters. It is full-fledged sidearm. And it's like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's sidearm, but almost like he's just whipping his arm like a windmill behind him. And then it comes sideways. It's bizarre. I can't really describe it, but it's loose. And the way that the ball just kind of flies out of his hand from this directly horizontal release where his body's coming at you and the arm's still kind of lagging behind. The slider plays up ridiculously from there. It's a sinker, obviously, from there. How could you do anything but have it break horizontally or run horizontally when you're releasing legitimately at that 90-degree angle? But it is just really cool to watch him do his thing. And it's really just all about being remotely in the zone. And if he's remotely in the zone, like, hitters aren't going to be comfortable against him at all. Over his final 20 appearances of the year, opponents hit 123 against him.
Come on. Yeah. Like he was on the team and we took him off for this guy when he got called up to the show. But before we get to that guy, left-handed pitcher Askew was traded for. Reliever.
Left-handed reliever.
Initials BR.
BR. Brooks Raley.
Yeah, Brooks Raley for Keyshawn Askew.
What a deal.
Crazy deal. But our first of three relievers that we're going to talk about is Edgardo Henriquez of the LA Dodgers. And we mentioned him because he got the call up. This guy started 5 games with Loe Rancho Cucamonga, and they were like, wait, you should just be a bullpen arm and throw fuzz. 53 innings, 43 appearances in total. This guy had a 2.72 ERA. Opponents hit 188 against him. He struck out 15 per 9. He allowed, 2 homers, I want to say, in 53 innings. And you've got the velo numbers on him. He is the premier fireballer in minor league baseball.
Oh, yeah. And the 2 homers, by the way, one was a 96-mile-per-hour exit velocity at 350 feet. And then I think the other one was legit off the cutter. But more than half of the pitches he's thrown this year have been at 100+ miles per hour, like 100.0 and above, which is crazy. And then that cutter, slider, whatever you want to call it, I think it's a cutter, and then he has a bigger slider. It's at 92. Like, that's just ridiculous. So opponents hit a $193 against him this year. And I mean, when you look at the cutter and slider, like, that's the other thing. Like, people talk about the velocity, and sure, but this low 90s cutter and this power slider are disgusting as well. And I think those pitches have been arguably more dominant when he goes to them. Opponents have hit 123 against those. So when you can get up to 104, and I mean, this guy's exceeded 102 already 35 times this year. He's exceeded 103 9 times this year. He's 22, and he's going to be 22 until the middle of next season. 6'4", 200. Like, this is a special arm talent.
It's absolutely crazy what he's got. And then 2 other 24-year-olds. Enrique is 22 years old, but the first of 2 24-year-olds that we're going to talk about is Grant Holman of the Oakland A's. And Holman, man, like, the numbers are absolutely insane. He's 6'6", 250. He was a first baseman at Cal Berkeley when he got to campus. And he has, like, slowly but surely made his way through the minor leagues for the Oakland A's. But this year, for some reason, he was utterly insane. Like, last year, 35 appearances at a 4.26. This year, 48 and 2/3 innings, 3 earned runs. Grant Holman opponents hit 154 against him?
I knew his name sounded familiar. He played third base on Katuitt when I was there. That's crazy. I don't think he made it through the whole summer. I think he threw like a third of an inning there. I was like, Grant Holman. I was like, maybe it's just a general name that you've heard before, like, around. Yeah, that's wild. I remember him out of Cal, 2-way guy. They're pretty unsure, like, which it was going to be, and then ended up leaning more towards the pitching side. He was a little stiff in the box, but yeah, it's a pretty freaking cool story, and clearly just found a way to make it work and out of the pen on a different level where he's now sitting in the mid 90s, and he's been dominant in the show. Like you said, like it's been scoreless every single time out there. And like Yankees, Rangers, whatever, he's coming in and it's hitless.
I think he had 1 blow up, right? Or 2 blow ups.
He had one bad outing in Cincinnati and one bad outing at Houston.
Okay.
So yeah, really just those two. His last last 5 appearances, he hasn't allowed a hit or a base runner. And it's just been cool to see. It's really good extension. You're going to see that two-way athlete, right? Like a 6'6" righty that gets down on the mound like that. Like he gets more than 7 feet of extension. And I think it just causes the fastball to get on guys. It's got some unique just aspects to it that I think just makes hitters uncomfortable. And then he's got, kind of a starter's arsenal still where he can go at you with a changeup and a slider. So he really seems to keep hitters off balance and uncomfortable, but always has that, fastball that gets on you quick to fall back on. But it's a really good changeup too. That I think having that fastball changeup combination with good extension really makes hitters, I think, feel rushed and in between.
Is it a split?
I believe so.
I think it's a splitter.
Yeah, it's a split. So even more so, like you're going to feel in between. Getting plus extension with a fastball in the mid 90s and then a split, hitters are already feeling rushed, and then you're going to be way out on the front leg when it's a split.
Yeah, he discovered something this year, man, and that is awesome that he discovered that. Last but not least, one of the best stories in minor league baseball this year, Craig Yoho of the Milwaukee Brewers. He is certainly the best reliever in minor league baseball this season. 10 saves, 48 appearances, high A, double, triple. 57 2/3, a 0.94 ERA. Opponents hit 151. He struck out 15.8 hitters per 9. In 57 2/3, he had more than 100 strikeouts, and he faced 238 hitters. 0 took him deep.
I'm trying to see if I can find a new stat that is like interesting, because we have just so many different instances here where we have talked about, the numbers, and like I think our listeners at this point know that opponents hit 142 against this changeup. I think like everybody knows that at this point because we've said it so many times. I think that the slept on part of his arsenal, though, like 'cause everyone's going to look at the changeup. His fastball gets 18 inches of horizontal movement from a low release, and then his breaking ball, like his sweeper. I don't even know if it's a sweeper because it's got like a lot of vertical depth to it too. So I don't even know what it is.
Big slider.
It's like a big slider. Averaged 20 inches of horizontal movement. So you're getting on the changeup an average of 18 inches of arm side run.
Yeah.
Then on the breaking ball, you're getting 20 inches of glove side run. We're talking about 38, 39, if you add the decimals, inches of horizontal separation here. If he's able to land that slider, because it breaks too much, he needs to make it a little shorter. He landed it for a strike 46% of the time. If he's able to land that for a strike even at 55, maybe try him as a starter. I would want to see what that looks like, because I say that kind of in jest, but man, if he's landing that slider for a strike and he's getting 20 inches this way, you cut it down to, let's say 15. He's getting 15 inches this way, 18 inches that way, and he's got the fastball that gets a ton of ground balls too. I mean, that's insane.
I think the easier remedy to that, instead of trying him in the rotation, is, now you don't have to pay Devin because you have a closer here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just so fascinated by the fact that he doesn't need the slider and he can naturally spin it to create 20 inches of horizontal. Like, what does this unlock for you if you can throw that first strike more than half of the time?
I mean, you said 39 inches. Like, let's turn that into feet. That's 3 feet of difference between
of horizontal separated. What the hell are you going to do with that as a hitter?
It's batter's box to batter's box.
When I saw him in Nashville, that's what caused me to go check the horizontal separation, because I only knew I wanted to see Craig Yoho changeup. That's all I wanted to see. I didn't realize that I was going to see a slider here too that could create the largest gap in horizontal separation that you have in professional baseball. And I have not checked that, but I don't think I need to.
That's the next Peyton Guinness overlay. Peyton, you're getting on the slider changeup overlay, Craig Yoho.
We're gonna have to have like a wide angle to be able to fit those both. That's crazy. We should do that next. That's awesome. Only other stat I have is the furthest ball that was hit off of him all year was a 379-foot fly out by Forrest Wall That was the closest I think anybody got to a home run.
What's Forrest Wall doing flying out? He should just put the ball on the ground and
He
run.
should just, yeah, especially against Craig Yoho, 58% ground ball rate, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if I have any other like fun. I wish I had some more fun stats, but nobody hit him, and they slugged 190 against him.
My other fun stat on Yoho is his first recorded pitching appearance since high school was last year at Indiana. He did not log an appearance at Houston. He hit at Houston. He transferred to Indiana. His first like recorded pitching in the Baseball Reference database is 2023, his draft year at Indiana, and somehow the Brewers found this in the 8th round. Somehow. They're insane.
It's absurd how they find these guys. The average exit velocity off of him was 83.6 miles per hour.
Yeah.
The average launch angle was 3.9 degrees.
Dude.
So the average hitter was rolling over gently. Like, if they made contact, which by the way, zone contact, it was the lowest in all of professional baseball, I believe. Or at least like for qualified pitchers, like it just says 0 percentile. So it was, the zone contact was 69% across his entire arsenal. I think at the AAA level, that was the like top notch. So yeah, see you in the show next year, Craig.
Yeah. Wow. So that's our All-MiLB team. I'll run through it again here real quick. And there's a corresponding article and Brandon Anderson graphic masterclass on this one too. But Adrian Del Castillo is the catcher. Davison De Los Santos of the Marlins at first. Del Castillo of the Diamondbacks. Christian Campbell, the Red Sox at second. Carson Williams of the Rays at short. Kobe Mayo of the Orioles at third. Outfield, Chandler Simpson of the Rays. Roman Anthony of the Red Sox. Lazaro Montes of the Mariners. And the pitching staff, Quinn Mathews of the Cardinals, Matt Wilkinson of the Guardians, Chase Dollander, Sean Sullivan of the Rockies, Caden Dana of the Angels, Noah Schultz of the White Sox, and then Craig Yoho of the Brewers, Grant Holman of the A's, and Edgardo Henriquez of the LA Dodgers. This was a hell of a year for so many prospects, but those were the guys that separated.
I can't wait to see who comes out of nowhere next year. That's why I love this stuff, man. Like guy that we've never heard of, several guys that we've never heard of going into this season. You know, our guys that we're talking about at the end of the season is the most impressive players, and that's why I freaking love minor league baseball. I can't wait to see who surprises us next year. But I'm really excited for the offseason content we got rolling soon too. We're going to revisit some of the prediction stuff too, like where we went wrong on the breakouts. I think that's going to be very fun, where we went right and wrong.
Yeah.
I want to be able to just kind of see how that all went. I want to do a little bit of like a retroactive, like we talked about, players that we were too high on and low on outside of the breakout guys and maybe why and how those things shook out. That's going to be really fun. Obviously got to finish out the rest of these farm systems. Diamondbacks will be coming up next week. So very much looking forward to that. And then we'll have an awards show that's going to be very, very fun because it'll be traditional awards, right? You'll have pitcher and hitter of the year, but we're also going to do some fun superlatives and things like that I think are going to highlight some things that players did really well, maybe that, didn't get highlighted enough. So any final thoughts, Jack?
I don't think so. Do we have to wear a button down and a tie for the award show?
Yes, we do.
Okay. That's fine. If you do it, I'll do it.
I know you will.
I will say.
But the thing is like, it will be more of an inconvenience to me than to you. So it's not worth it for me.
Right. Fair. I will say, you asked for a final thought. I will give you a final thought. I did not think that the Oakland Coliseum being closed down on Thursday was going to give me the goosebumps that it did. But I was driving, I listened to the final out on the radio, and then I switched to the TV to, just listen to like the post-game stuff. And I was welling up just on a drive. I was in like Wheeling, West Virginia. And I was like, why am I emotional right now? I've never been to the Oakland Coliseum. But I thought the A's, both on radio and on TV, did an amazing job of capturing that moment. And if you haven't seen that, there are a couple things from games this week that I want you to go watch. Jackson Job's entrance in the 9th inning in Detroit was amazing. And the final out and the moments after the final out on the A's telecast on NBC Sports Bay Area.
The Job thing where they don't cut to commercial break and, the whole crowd knows the magnitude of their top prospect. Like it was cool to see like the whole crowd knowing how talented Job is. Like this is our guy and this is the future. Just that gave me goosebumps too, seeing Job come in and he was awesome. Yeah. But on the Oakland thing, one quick thought I wanted to add to that before we call it a weekend is watching that and seeing some of the kids, just how sad they were, it was really tough because it actually brought up a memory that I had totally forgotten about from when I was about 10, 11, 12 years old. Uh, there was a legit chance that my beloved at the time, I was diehard. My beloved Florida Marlins were going to move. And it seemed like there was a really good chance that was going to happen. And I had, recent memories of the Expos and seeing what happened there. And I would go to my desktop every single day when I got home from school, go to marlins.com and go to the, Sun Sentinel, whatever I could, Miami Herald, and try to see if there's any information on what was going on. Of course, it was way over my head, all the crazy stuff that goes into it,
Right.
and all the litigation side of things, and all the politics, which still even to this day is over my head.
Yeah.
But I felt I like remembered what that kid felt like, and it was really weird because I was like, I totally repressed that memory. I didn't even remember it, and it just reminded me like how important this sport is to so many people, and it's such a nice distraction from things. And for me as a kid, it was like, no matter what was going on, it always had that for me at home, and I was being threatened to be taken away from me, and I was so terrified of that. And it's a reality now for so many kids and their parents out there in Oakland. I know it's just baseball, and I understand that, but I think this was a reminder that this is something that can be so much more to people. Because no matter what's going on in their life, good, bad, indifferent, it almost always is going to push them up higher and give them something to look forward to and be happy about. So to just take that away from people like that, it reminded me of what was my biggest sports fear ever. When I was growing up. So I really do feel for Oakland fans, and I know there's probably a level of like, I don't want to go root for that team in Vegas. I wouldn't blame you either. I hope they can find some sort of substitute replacement or a way to kind of fill that void, because I know there's a hell of a lot of incredible baseball fans out there. And the part that makes me most upset is we talk about Jack Perkins, by the way, finished the year incredibly well, right-handed pitching prospect in the A system, Double-A, dominated down the stretch, sub-1 over his last 5 starts. But beyond him, there's a lot of really fun players that are coming up through this Oakland system, and some pieces at the big league level that are pieces. And I'm working on a Lawrence Butler swing adjustment piece that's about to go live either today or early next week about how he's a dog. And like, the team is about to be good. Like, I really believe in what's happening. And that's what makes it almost sting even more. Now it's happening somewhere else away from them, for the fans that were so patient and have been waiting for things to get better again with terrible ownership that doesn't really care. So I feel for fans on that front, because you can really see bright days ahead for the actual team itself.
Yeah, no, very well said. And I'm not sure if you saw the Man on the Street interview that was going viral yesterday.
I couldn't watch that stuff. I really couldn't. I'm not kidding.
So there was one that really stuck with me, and I saw it because I think Danny Vietti at CBS reposted it. And in essence, this guy was saying, my dad didn't know what to do with me, so he took me here. And I didn't know what to do with my younger brother, so I took him here. And like, I then knew what to do with my kids, so I took him here. And now I can't take him here anymore. And
I didn't even see that.
Yeah,
that's
that
example
really
of exactly what I was saying there. Then I mean, I can't watch the interviews.
And baseball is the one sport where I think that is the case, because you're not taking little kids to a basketball game because the prices are too crazy. But you go grab nosebleeds at the Oakland Coliseum for $5 a pop. That's the magic of baseball. You go, you hang out. It is the best meeting spot. It is the best outdoor bar in America.
Yeah.
Like, the ballpark is the best bar in your town. I promise you that.
It's funny. That's actually a great, I don't think my dad knew what to do with me in the beginning either. And like that's what he did.
I like this. He might like this too.
Yeah, he didn't have a father that took him to anything, that wasn't very present. So he was like, okay, how can I be better? And that was the first thing that he did. And it was at that crappy, Pro Player Stadium. And those are some of my best memories ever. So again, feeling for Oakland fans. I know that we've got several that listen to this show. So, I'm really excited about the team's future, but I don't know if that means anything to those fans. So, just wishing them well and enjoy the postseason and just enjoy baseball still, because the sport's not going anywhere, whether you have a brutal owner or not. But
and
you got one more thing?
Yeah, join the Rockies bandwagon with us.
Yes, because that team ain't moving, and I'm in on that too. It's a different kind of ineptitude over there, but it's a more fun one, and it's a more forgivable one, I think, at times.
Way more.
Hey, they're gonna open up the pocketbooks. 13 million coming off the books with Charlie Blackmon.
Fire
Let's
me
see what
up.
they do. Let's see what they do. Let's see who they sign.
I'm in.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Really appreciate you always supporting, listening, watching. However you consume the call up, share it with your friends. Please help us grow the show. Very pumped for off-season content. I think it's where we can even cook more. And top 100 update, final season update coming in a couple weeks. Arizona Fall League rosters are out. We got you with that next week too. A lot of stuff on the way. Look forward to talking prospects with you next week.